Let me guess. You got a dream, maybe a vision that keeps calling you. You can see it, feel it, maybe even taste it. But when it comes to moving towards it, you stall. You overthink. You hover in the in-between. And you start asking yourself, why do I keep circling this thing and I'm not building it? Like something is holding you back from stepping into creation mode. Because here's the truth. It's not that you don't want it. It's that a part of you does and a part of you doesn't. One part is drawn to the dream, but another part, it's not really ready for what the dream will ask of you. It's not just the doing, but the becoming. So instead, you stay in the loop, stuck in the tension between your soul's expansion and your nervous system's resistance to change. So you're not stuck because you're lazy, and I say this often because I feel like we really need to cement that. You're not stuck also because of discipline. You're stuck because a deeper part of you doesn't feel safe with what movement might bring. It's not necessarily just the risk of failure, but the ripple effect of change, what you'll have to let go of, who you'll have to stop pleasing, and even what truths will finally come to the surface. Because movement isn't just about going forward, it's about what gets shaken loose along the way. And in this video, we're shifting that step by step. I'm gonna walk you through a grounded 3-step formula that turns dreaming into doing and vision into motion. So if you've been craving clarity and real momentum, stay with me. What we're about to unpack might change how you move forward forever. So by the end of this video, you'll know why big dreams often stall out before they start, how your own mind and body might be blocking the momentum you need without you even realizing it, and the 3-step path to shift out of identity paralysis and into aligned momentum. And I'm going to explain what that means a little bit later. We're going to do this without force or bypassing, just grounded, embodied action that feels like a return to who you've been all along. So this isn't about doing more. It's about moving from a place that feels true, safe, and sustainable. And so let's be real. Dreaming feels good, keeps us inspired, hopeful, future focused. We may even have like a vision board, all the stickies on the wall. But sometimes dreaming becomes a hiding place. We convince ourselves we're manifesting when really we're just avoiding. So here's a mirror moment. Is your dreaming leading you into expansion, or is it keeping you comfortably stuck in the safety of the what if? Maybe someone who doesn't follow through, someone who keeps themselves small, someone who consistently outthinks their way out of possibilities. But again, this isn't laziness, okay? It's a pattern of belief systems that formed a false identity, what I mentioned earlier, one that's been protecting you from scrutiny, shame, and disappointment for a very long time. Again, this is about identity. So here's where it gets deep, but also where things start to make a little more sense. So what looks like hesitation on the outside is often the result of an internal identity conflict. It's a tug of war between who you're becoming and the parts of you still clinging to who you had to be. We don't cling to inaction because we're lazy. We cling to it because somewhere along the way, we were taught that stillness equals safety. From a psychological lens, this often traces back to attachment conditioning. If your early bonds were unstable, critical, or conditional, you likely learned to prioritize connection over authenticity. You became pleasing, quiet, invisible. That was definitely me. You learned that shrinking earned you love, or at least kept you from losing it. And over time, those same survival strategies hardened into an identity, not because they were true, but because they kept you protected. And those strategies, they often show up as procrastination, perfectionism, or overthinking, not because you're flawed, but because those behaviors once helped you stay safe. And so there's this modality in therapy called internal family systems. They talk about protective parts. And I've definitely mentioned it in other videos. The idea is that we have all these protective parts often working in overdrive. And so those protective parts, they become those inner voices that say quietly, like, don't stand out, don't need too much, don't ask for things, and don't risk being fully seen. They're not trying to sabotage you as much as it feels like that. They're just trying to shield the parts of you that still carry the memory of what it costs to be fully exposed, to be vulnerable. And if you know Carl Jung's work, he will call this the persona, the mask you wear to stay safe in a world that once told you your truth was just too much. And from a spiritual lens, your soul's vision will always ask you to shed what was never yours to carry. And that can feel like a heavy responsibility. But the ego interprets all of this as a threat because it's built this identity around control, predictability, and survival. So what happens? You pause, you stall, you spin in indecision, not because something is wrong, not because you're broken or any of that nature, but because you're still living inside an identity built for protection, not expansion. So here's the shift. You don't need to push through the resistance or the inner conflict. You don't need to overcome fear. You actually need to include it. You also need to tend to the identity that's afraid of what will happen if you stop hiding. Because when that identity begins to soften, to stretch, movement isn't something you force. It becomes something that you allow. It becomes something that begins to feel quite natural to you. All right, so now that you know what's really going on beneath the surface, let's talk about how to shift it gently, intentionally, and without bypassing the parts of you that have been holding you back. Because this next part, it's not about productivity. It's not about pushing harder, performing better. So this 3-step process is simply a support system, a grounded rhythm to help you move forward without abandoning yourself. Not another get more done strategy, not a rigid formula for success. This isn't matrix style thinking. This is structure in service of safety, not pressure. It's a pathway that helps your system feel held and safe so your next step feels doable. You don't need another plan. You just need a rhythm that honors your pace and your power. All right, so if you're ready to move from circling your dream to actually building it on your terms, let's get into it. All right, so the first step seems obvious, but it's usually the hardest. And the first step is to decide. We look at decision in the way that clarity as devotion. Every vision asks for a choice, not a huge leap, just a clear yes. But this is where so many people freeze, not because they don't care about what they want to create, what they want to just like bring to life, but because the moment that they choose, that old identity starts to feel very threatened. Because when you decide, even just a little, you're no longer circling, you're actually claiming it. And that can feel, again, very exposed, very vulnerable. Most people wait until they're sure, but waiting for certainty is like staring at a blank canvas, expecting that the whole painting will appear before you actually pick up the brush. And so that doesn't happen. So in reality, the vision reveals itself as you create it. Spiritually speaking, decision is a frequency. It's the energy of co-creation. It tells the universe, I'm no longer waiting to be chosen, I'm choosing myself. And from a Jungian perspective, every decision draws something up from the unconscious. It's not just about action, it's about integration. A decision is the bridge between your conscious desires and the parts of you that have been hidden, exiled, or even afraid. So this is why it feels so intense. You're not just deciding what to do, you're deciding who you're willing to remember yourself to be. And so here's the truth. Clarity doesn't come before a movement. And I say this all the time. It comes through it. So choose one thing, one door to step through, one next step, even if it's tiny. It doesn't mean you're saying no to everything else. It just means that you're saying yes to forward motion. And if you're still scared of choosing wrong, which doesn't necessarily exist, ask yourself, is it the decision you fear or the version of you that you'll have to embody once you commit? Remember, no decision is permanent, but indecision, that's what keeps you anchored to an identity that you've already outgrown. And listen, I know this firsthand. I'm a double Libra, and if you know astrology, you know what this means already. I'm a dreamer, like literally a bona fide dreamer. My partner will lovingly remind me, okay, friend, that sounds beautiful, but what's the plan? Because I can get lost in the clouds. And honestly, I love how dreaming makes me feel. It excites me. It makes me lean into the possibilities, but I had to learn hard lesson after hard lesson that the feeling alone doesn't make things real. It doesn't help you to create anything. And for a long time, nothing changed until life forced me to change. And I mentioned this in the overthinking video. I believe it's the first video in this series. Back then, my life often had to shatter to a million pieces before I could actually take a step forward. Like when I dreamed about leaving my job, like I hated my job, but it took me 6.5 years to finally do it. And even when I did it, my hand was forced. And there's a whole story about that. I'm not going to get into it now. When I needed to end a toxic relationship, but the fixer in me kept holding on, trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved, didn't need to be saved until I hit a point of no return. I even dreamed of living a nomadic life without having to teach English as a backup plan, but I clung to that role for 2.5 years until finally decided to just release it. And once I did, real opportunities began to show up, real authentic relationships began to present themselves. And these opportunities, especially with the work, they weren't glamorous, but they were aligned opportunities, things that felt good to me. That's really what mattered. And I say this to say nothing moves until you do. Nothing changes until something changes, even if that change is small, even if it's scary. Some choices I know are hard and some are obvious, but either way, they need to be made from alignment, from self-trust, not from fear. And I know much of what I share with you isn't always easy, but it's necessary. And just know that you're not alone in this. A lot of us share the same sentiments. And that's why the next step in this formula is about moving. That's where everything begins to shift, not just mentally, but physically, somatically, and energetically. So let's talk about what that really looks like. So the second step is move. Let the body lead. Now that you've chosen, you made a decision, the next step again is simple: to move. Not mentally, not in 5-year plans or spreadsheets, not in checklists, just one clear embodied step. And this is where, again, a lot of people get stuck, because the moment that you act, the illusion of control will actually dissolve. Or sometimes it gets stronger. This is when you actually have to commit to the decision that you made, because you're no longer just thinking about the life that you want. You're participating in it. Want to write a book? Don't outline the whole thing. Just write one messy, honest paragraph. Want to launch a project? Don't build the website. Just tell one person that you're doing it. Want to start your healing journey in a particular way? Don't design some sort of whole ritual. Don't do a lot of research. Just sit with your breath for 2 minutes. Because here's the truth: your mind will always crave certainty, but your body builds trust through experience. It needs like evidence, proof. I came across Dr. BJ Fogg's book. I haven't read it, but it makes a lot of sense. His book is called Tiny Habits, The Small Changes That Change Everything. And this is something I share with my clients all the time. I thought I'd include some of what he said in this video for you. It says that small, consistent actions, not big leaps, create sustainable change, because they give your system something it's been missing. Proof that it's safe to move. Remember, I said evidence. It needs to know that, okay, we've done this before and it's okay. And if you haven't done it before, then it's important to begin training your body to be comfortable in that state. And this is how we help our protective parts loosen their grip and loosen their control over protecting us from any kind of pain. And we don't do it through force, but by showing them gently again and again that forward movement doesn't mean abandonment or danger. Think of this as soul reparenting. You're not dragging yourself forward. You're walking with yourself at a pace that feels authentic to you. It feels grounded and alive. You don't need long-term momentum. You just need a moment, just one moment to moment that begins to create the progression that you're desiring. So let's do something really quickly. If you're driving, don't do this. But if you're at home and you're relaxing, just take a pause here and close your eyes. Take one deep breath and just begin to imagine that you've already made the decision, whatever decision that is. Now just let your body join the conversation. How does it feel? And when you begin to think of the steps that are important to take to actually make this decision come through, what's one small authentic action that your body is asking for right now? Not the right step, but the one that feels authentic. Because the right step could be somebody else's perspective or what they think that you should do, but one that feels aligned for you. It might feel quiet. The next step might feel very simple, like ridiculously simple, that you're like, this isn't even big enough, but it feels true. And I just want you to trust that and let that be your first step. And when you can, just drop an emoji in the comments that lets me know that you are ready to move gently, honestly, and of course on your terms. And if you feel called, name your first imperfect step. And let's hold that intention together. Let's do the final step of this formula. It's all about sustainability. This is all about rhythm over rigidity. Taking that first step is the most powerful. I said that earlier, but staying in motion without shutting down, without burning out. That's where the real work begins, because movement alone isn't necessarily the goal. A sustainable movement is. This is the part where a lot of people skip. They take one bold move, one bold leap. When the energy dips, They assume maybe they failed. I've definitely gotten into that where I've got really excited at the first step. And then next thing you know, my energy dips for a specific reason. Maybe I'm overwhelmed by something and I have to recalibrate. But when your energy dips like that, it's not a sign that like you failed in something. You just haven't found your rhythm yet. And so this is where self-trust is either built or slowly eroded. It's not in the big, loud wins, but in the quiet, messy moments where you choose to keep going anyway, even if there's a blip. And it has nothing, again, to do with discipline, because what looks like inconsistency is often a protective part saying, I'm overwhelmed, or I don't feel safe, or I don't want to mess this thing up because it feels so important to me. And so these are your protective parts asking for more support, not shame. They don't need more pressure. They need presence. So instead of asking, why can't I stay consistent? Try asking what rhythm actually supports me and the version of me I'm becoming. Because your nervous system doesn't need another productivity strategy or hack. Your inner child doesn't need more expectations or rules. And your soul, it doesn't respond to rigidity. It responds to ritual, to rhythm, to devotion, not a schedule. It responds to a return point. And so the goal isn't perfection. It's creating something steady enough to come back to, especially when life, gets to life in like it normally does. But that's how the self-trust grows over time. That's how momentum turns into an identity. You become someone that consistently follows through and executes. And that's how movement becomes integration. You begin to embody it, not something you chase, but again, something that you embody. It's not a performance, but a practice of remembering who you've been all along, underneath all that fear, the hesitation, all of that stuff, because integration isn't about doing more. It's about moving from wholeness and returning to it again and again and again. All right, let's take a deep breath. We just moved through a lot in this video. We've explored why big dreams often stall out, how your hesitation might actually be a form of protection, and how momentum builds when movement feels safe, not forced. Now let's ground that insight into something real. Here is your mini challenge, because we got to take action after this, y'all. So what's one vision you've been circling? And what's the next imperfect, honest step that you're willing to take towards it? We talked about this, leaving it in the comments earlier, but again, let me know that you're planting your seeds of energy into motion today. Spring season is ripe for taking action. And so when you mark it in the comments below, marker becomes your return point, because the moment that you name it, even quietly, something inside of you begins to shift. The energy moves and the path begins to reveal itself little by little. Just remember, you weren't given this dream by accident, whatever it is. Desire is actually pretty sacred, and movement is devotion. Even quantum physics reminds us, observation turns potential into form, but potential without movement, it dissolves. So move, okay? Even if it's small, even if it's wobbly, move because your dream deserves it. Move because your body needs it. Move because it's time. It's long overdue. If you want deeper support on this path, the Resistance Reset is currently closed, but the waitlist is open. So feel free. There'll be links in the description below so you can sign up. You'll be the first to know when the doors actually reopen. And if you're looking for a next step right now, check the links in the description below. You'll find a few powerful freebies waiting for you, one designed to deepen your self-reflection and another to help you clear the emotional and energetic clutter that's been slowing you down. So remember, simple shifts equal big impact. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the final video in this 4-part series. We're going to be discussing next time about how to reclaim your energy and stop wasting your time on what doesn't matter. Because even aligned action can't thrive in a life leaking energy at every corner. So the goal is to stop dreaming in a way that keeps you stuck. You're turning that dreaming into doing, but most importantly, you're doing it differently now from a place of intention and connection and alignment. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you, again, subscribe, hit the bell for all the notifications, and I will see you on the other side of change.